NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over. When the Nets just can't play. What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bringing the latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. All right, so it's been a little over a week since my last NetsBoy episode, in which the Nets played 6 games and went 4-2 during those stretch of games. And they were a very interesting stretch of games. You know, we got to see Kevin Durant get hurt and then come back. We got to see, Mike James, the newest Net, in action. We got to see some great performances by Landry Shamet and some not so great performances by Landry Shamet. We got to see Kyrie Irving doing what he does all the time, which is just be an unbelievable offensive force, except for the Celtics game, but they still won. We got to see a very disappointing buzzer-beating loss to the Heat, which we're going to talk a bit about later on in this episode. And then we got to see, what this team looks like without LaMarcus Aldridge. We got to see what this team would be like without Nicholas Claxton for a time being, and Alize Johnson, because they were out in COVID protocol. Same thing with Reggie Perry. But we also got to see the return of Tyler Johnson. So there were so many things that happened. But it's just tough. It's tough right now for me to find the time to do these NetsBoy episodes. Not just because I'm very busy, as I always say almost every episode, but just because these games are just so compressed now. And that was one of the criticisms of the second half of the schedule being released, that there's a lot of back-to-backs and a lot of games that are like right on top of each other. And we are seeing that. These last stretch of games were every other day. And, for someone like me who, like I said, is very busy and has a lot on his plate and needs a solid hour to 2 hours to film and edit these NetsBoy episodes, despite how mediocre they are, it's hard sometimes for me to find the time to do it in which I'm not tired. I work nonstop. I come home, I eat, and then I watch the Nets game. And next thing you know, it's 1 a.m. And I'm like, holy crap, I got to do a NetsBoy. And if I happen to have the energy, I film it. And if not, I go right to sleep. That's why they take so long for these episodes, if anyone was wondering. But all beside the point. This episode, however, is coming right after the great statement win against the Suns. Kevin Durant's second return. His return since the thigh contusion. And the Nets just looked great against the Suns. So this is right after that game. That's where we are. So if you're wondering when this episode was filmed, there it is. So let's dive right in and look at the couple games. Like I said, a 4-2 stretch. There's not a lot to really nitpick during these stretch of games, except for really the Miami Heat loss. The Raptors loss was a disappointment, obviously, but no Durant. It can happen. And we all know that the Raptors, they've been banged up all year. They've been hurt, and they're still a very good team despite what their record says. And I think they said something like that was the first time in like something like 20-something games that the whole Raptors team was fully healthy. And so I'm not going to get that upset by that loss because, once again, no Durant, no obviously James Harden, just Kyrie and the gang, and they couldn't beat that good Raptors team. But the Miami Heat game, that loss frustrated me. And it wasn't because, Durant got hurt in the first 4 minutes and then, or anything like that. And it wasn't about the fact that I felt like the Nets had a chance throughout the whole game to take over the game, but they could never get over the hump. It wasn't about the fact that they lost after squandering a 30-point performance by Landry Shamet. That's not what got me super angry about that loss. It wasn't even just the buzzer beater, right? It wasn't the fact that Bam Adebayo made a great play, got to his spot, and shot over Jeff Green, hit the game-winning shot. It wasn't even that. That wasn't the thing that I'm going to be so angry about. But what got me so mad, I kind of just alluded to it when I said Jeff Green, Why did DeAndre Jordan not play in that game? Why is the answer with LaMarcus Aldridge retired and gone? We know DeAndre Jordan needs to be in the rotation. He deserves to be in the rotation. He's better than the stupid small ball lineup. I am like a freaking broken record. Bam Adebayo had 15 boards in that game. The Heat had tons of offensive rebounds. Bam Adebayo had his way in the post. I get it. Bam Adebayo could probably beat DeAndre Jordan in the triple threat and off the ball. But you want to know something? Bam Adebayo, if you watch his offensive skill set, he's much more efficient using his size to post up and shoot over people than trying to put the ball on the floor and finish, though he can do both. If you watch him play, that's the way to stop him. I'd rather the Nets play DeAndre Jordan and force Bam Adebayo to put the ball on the floor and be more of a playmaker than post up shorter Jeff Green. I don't get it. And it's not even like, hey, DeAndre Jordan should have been at the end of the game. No, DeAndre Jordan should not have been in at the end of the game. Nicholas Claxton should have been at the end of the game. But no, we have to have Jeff Green and this great small ball lineup be out there. That didn't make any sense to me. Claxton is the perfect defensive player to play, Bam Adebayo down the stretch. But when it came to rebounds, which the Nets got out-rebounded in that game, to interior defense, which the Nets got dominated in the interior by Bam Adebayo, where the hell was DeAndre Jordan? He didn't even play. What are you doing, Steve? Why? This small ball lineup is the death of the Nets. It will be the death of this team. This team will lose because of this type of coaching and this type of moves. Get away from it. Use it only when it makes sense. How does against Bam Adebayo does it make sense? Does Bam Adebayo shoot threes? Not really. He can every once in a while, but that's not his game. Bam Adebayo is a big, strong body who likes to use his size and his athleticism to get to the basket into the interior. So why not use your best interior defender in freaking DeAndre Jordan? I didn't get it. I've never been so confused of why he didn't play in that game. And I really do believe that if he played in that game, that the Nets would have won that game easily. I really do. I really do. But nope, we got to see Blake Griffin at the center spot, Jeff Green at the center spot, obviously Claxton. But nope, no DeAndre Jordan. It just didn't make sense. And Kyrie made some really dumb plays down the stretch of that game. He tried to do too much hero ball, and they squandered a great performance by Shaman. Like I said, those things happen. At least Kyrie admitted that, hey, I probably shouldn't have tried that many shots. Should have tried to be more of a facilitator. But whatever, just some of these coaching decisions by Steve Nash just frustrate me. It's just classic Steve Nash, offensive mentality, just like he was as a player. Beat this team by just outscoring them. Mike D'Antoni offense, it's. And maybe that's the strategy when you don't have great defensive players, just outscore them. I get it. But when you have a guy whose sole purpose on this team is to grab rebounds and play interior defense, why not play him against a guy who's dominating on the boards and in the post? Anyway, they lost that game. But, like I said, they had some other good moments in this one, especially against the Suns when Durant came back and was unbelievably efficient. Good win against the Celtics despite a poor performance by Kyrie Irving. They won that game. The Hornets they won. So overall, this team looks like it's getting there. They're getting healthy again. Tyler Johnson came back. Like I said, they signed Mike James to a 10-day contract. We'll see how if he lasts. He's looked all right. I haven't hated what I've seen. He's confident. He's capable of scoring the basketball. He can be a point guard. I talked about the Nets maybe needing another third-string point guard to spell since Chioza's out with the hand injury. So it's just we got to see this team get a little bit healthier. And I do want to say this. It is so obvious that the key to the Nets' success is to have at least two of their big three playing. You know, when two of the big three playing, whether it's Durant and Kyrie like it's been lately, or, you know, Kyrie and James Harden that we saw for a long time, or for a short time we saw Harden and KD, as long as two of the three are playing, this Nets team can beat anyone on any given night. And heck, I would say that they should be the favorites against 80% of the league with those two players. With all three of them, despite them not playing much together, I think that they should be the favorites in every game. Every game. But when two of the three of them are playing, I feel like they've got a very good chance of winning. But when there's just one of them out there, it just seems like it's just not going to be enough, and that they could lose to anyone on any given night, as we saw with the Raptors game and obviously the Heat game too. But, you know, the exciting thing about all of this is, despite my anger about that loss, and despite the disappointing loss, and a 4-2 stretch is pretty good, despite everything, though, the injuries and the constant rotations and, in my opinion, blunders by Steve Nash coaching-wise, and all of this chaos, the constant injuries of Kevin Durant and all this stuff, and Harden being out, and Dinwiddie getting hurt at the beginning of the year, and COVID and all this stuff, and the James Harden trade, despite everything that's going on, the Nets are in first place in the East. Wow. And they're a game up on the 76ers. And they control their own destiny. If the Nets win out, which I would love, but I don't think it's going to happen because they got some tough games coming out. If they win out, they will be the one seed in the East. Doesn't matter what else happens. It's all on them. And I can't believe it, to be honest, after everything that's happened with this team. So I guess with this thing that I've been complaining about or yelling about or being upset about, for them to be, 41-20, right? That's what they are, right? 40. I don't even know. I think it's 41-20, right? Jeez, hold on a second. I believe they're 41-20. Yes, 41-20. That's what I thought. It slips my mind. That's incredible. 21 games over 500. They got 11 games to go. Okay, they've got a shot at winning 50 games this year in a 72-game season. They just got to go 9-2, which this team, I believe, should be able to, especially now that Kevin Durant's back. So we'll see. So with everything going on, this team is right where I expect them to be. And, the next couple of games for this Nets, though, like I said, maybe a little bit of a challenge. Oh, yeah, they beat the Pelicans, too. I forgot about that game. It was a good game. I guess it was a good game. I don't even remember. They just scored a lot. See, this is what happens. They play so many games in the span of a week, I can't even remember exactly what happened in every game. I just remember the things that get me the angriest. Like, it was a close game then. I remember that. And I think people played well. People played basketball. I don't know. Anyway, let's just look at the next couple games for this Nets moving forward, because they've got, like I said, some tough games coming up. So the next game is a rematch against the Raptors. Now, Durant is playing in this game. Look, Nets just lost to the Raptors, but I believe the Nets should be able to beat the Raptors and redeem themselves after that disappointing loss. So I'm going to say that's a win. Then they play Karis LeVert and the Indiana Pacers. That's a game that the Nets should win again. And these are the games that the Nets need to win, because after those two games, and yes, they're both road games, but after those two games, they then play the Trailblazers at home. Now, here's the thing. The Pacers-Blazers game is a back-to-back. Does this mean we're not going to see Kevin Durant one of those games? Almost certainly. And that's when things get dangerous. Will Durant play in the Pacers game and not in the Blazers game? Or is it going to be the other way around? Personally, I think it should be the other way around. I think he shouldn't play in the Pacers game and play in the Blazers game. Now, Pacers, Blazers. Indiana, Portland, say that. It's easier to say. Not play in the Indiana game, but play in the Portland game, because even though the Pacers are a borderline playoff team, let's be honest, the Trailblazers are a much better team than the Indiana Pacers, and I think Durant should play in that game. So we'll see, though. We'll see if Steve Nash, plays him in that game or rests him. You would assume he's going to rest him. That seems to be what's always been happening, because, Kevin Durant hasn't rested enough and hasn't missed enough games, So most likely we'll see a rest there. But I still think they should be able to win both those games as well, because then is when things get interesting. Then they've got 2 consecutive road games against the Milwaukee Bucks. Well, NBA scheduling people, what the hell is that? I don't think I've ever seen back-to-back road. Well, I mean, they did it a couple times this year. I can't even say that. We've seen it a couple times earlier this year because of COVID. Back-to-back road games against the same team or back-to-back home games against the same team. But, damn, the Milwaukee Bucks back-to-back. And I'll tell you this right now. I'm afraid of the 76ers. Well, let me be honest. I'm worried about the 76ers being able to beat the Nets in the playoffs. But believe it or not, I'm more worried about the Bucks. And that's something I'll talk about later on in the year, probably when we do, the end of the season wrap-up and we talk about the postseason. So I'll keep you intrigued for that. So even though the 76ers is the team everyone thinks is going to be the best team to beat the Nets, I personally am more afraid of the Bucks. But like I said, we won't talk about that now. Just, keep you on the edge of your seats and keep watching NetsBoy episodes to find out why. Because who knows what I'm going to talk about. But anyway, back-to-back games against the Bucks. If the Nets can win one out of those 2 games, I think it'll be great. I'll be surprised if they win both games because those are really tough games. And then they got the Mavericks after that, and then they got Denver after that. So that's why winning those first 2 games against the Raptors and the Pacers is critical because the Trailblazers, Bucks, Mavericks, Nuggets, you're playing legitimate, playoff-bound teams right there, and all of them except for the Trailblazers game is on the road. So, tough stretching game for the Nets. But like I said, as long as Durant plays in those games and the Nets continue to play the way they've been playing when fully healthy, I think they have a chance to win at least 4 of those games. Can we get 4 of those games, Nets? 4? I named 7, 4 and 3. Maybe can we get 5 and 2? Can we get 5 and 2? Let's hope for 5 and 2. Those next 7 games. So I'm pretty sure I'll do a NetsBoy before that happens. I'll probably do a Nets game probably after that second Bucks game. That seems like a good time to do an episode. So after the next 5 games to do a NetsBoy episode. But we'll see because, NetsBoy's always busy doing his whatever. That's a secret that no one will ever know. So anyway, let's wrap up this episode. Went over what I wanted to went over. Let me know what you think about the stretch of games. There's great small ball lineup. Mike James being on the Nets, if we think he's going to be the long-term solution. He just signed a 10-day contract, so who knows if he's going to be the final roster piece or not. Durant coming back, what we saw from him. Shamet, who looked great one moment, and then after that 30-point game hasn't quite played the same way, but that's who he is. He's a streaky player. Let me know what you guys think about anything. And until next time, this is NetsBoy, just rolling his eyes at the small ball lineup every time it comes in. Though without Claxton's last couple games, it made sense. But still, it's signing off.